You're on. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Every Point's a Winner, here for episode 35. And we're going to wrap up round 18. It was 3 teams with a bye. The first game we're going to go over is Cronulla versus Dolphins. And there's something that I noticed over the weekend, and it's a real bad thing for any-time try scorer people. We'll go through it as I talk about this match. But welcome anyway. Hopefully you've joined us here. Otherwise, you can pick up the podcast later on. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and click the bell so the bell can actually give you all your notifications. So sometimes when Scotty's free from down the South Coast, he'll come up and do the program, and he did a fine job of calling Origin 3. I grabbed his leg underneath the table a few times as he was calling. I felt a little bit biased towards Queensland, but he deserved it. They were too good, and they won the series, and they were the best team in the game that was the most important. And congratulations to Tommy Dearden. And we've moved on now, and now the teams are slowly getting their players back. It'll probably take another week or two for us to really see the teams that are separating from the top 8 and the ones that are going further behind and chasing their tails, so to speak. Anyway, the first game, as we get onto it, it was really lackluster in that first half, and it was all the Sharks. The Sharks ended up winning 24-12. It looked like going down to the wire once the Dolphins scored those 2 quick tries in the second half. But the first half was it was 6-0. So this is a pattern I've noticed which really concerns me as an anytime try scorer, tipster and punter myself. It really bothered me. It happened also in 1 or 2 other matches that I'll make note of as we go through. So anyway, it was Nicholas Hines going over twice, once in the 7th minute and once in the 74th minute. I don't know what your try celebration was, mate, but it was a little bit strange. But anyway, it's all for a good cause, I imagine. Sione Katoa went over in the dying stages of the match. Herbie Farnworth with an amazing try, Herbie Farnworth, in the 70th minute. And he was our collect, but we did not have Nicholas Hine, Jesse Raymond for the double, and Sione Katoa was long odds on, and we certainly didn't have Max Feagai. Scored an amazing try off an exceptionally strange Jake Averillo kick. That's the guy who we needed for the double. But Herbie Farnworth got us enough value to get us most of our money back on the outlay of the doubles. Yeah, so unfortunately we didn't have Nicholas Hines, and there was just no score for, at least 50, 55 minutes of that game, and then it opened up, and then it was on for young and old. But they scored those 2 quick tries. Lucky to get away with it, Cronulla. They did just enough. I can't see them being of any danger unless they pick it right up into that Broncos Penrith class. I can't see them going past if they get the major semi-finals, I'll be surprised. But they need to actually go better than that. But dirty win is a dirty win, and I thought it was quite dirty. Dolphins, unfortunately, have really shown that they cannot have Katoa without his little mate by his side. And I'm talking about Cody Nikorima. He's been such a great anytime try scorer for us as well. So we were missing him as well as the Dolphins. Katoa had one of his worst games. He looked listless. He looked lost out there. And that's very much unlike him. But he's not the perfect player. Everyone's wrapping him up to be the new superstar of the future. But on efforts like that, he was very, very disappointing. So it's good for him to learn from that. And definitely that combination of Nikorima and him are essential to this side going forward. If they get into the top 8 for playoffs anyway, because there's still quite a few rounds left, even though we're just past the middle stages. So anyway, let's go to the important stats here, see if we can pick out any things that also led towards the Dolphins' demise in this game at Shark Park. And it's the team stats here, player stats I'm looking for now. They're the top try scorer, top tacklers were Jeremy Marshall King. He was unlucky not to get that ball. Rudolph scrambled right at the end, and that would have forced the Cronulla Sharks into emergency mode. I tell you, there wasn't much in it, and they had to go to the bunker to have a good look at that. He had a big game, 65 tackles. Blake Brayley had a big game also from dummy half there, 45 tackles. William Kennedy, 239 and 257. Herbie Farnworth there. But I think by memory, we actually did have one of our main bankers, Britton Nakora, waiting for an inside flick pass that William Kennedy was calling, and he ended up throwing a dummy, and Britton Nakora had open space to go straight to the try line and score, and that really threw us because we would have got quite a few nice doubles leading into him and Herbie Farnworth. So very disappointing, Kennedy. If you think it's a team game, Kennedy, I can say one thing. You need to play like you're in a team and not hog the ball like that. Yeah, sometimes you can throw a dummy and get away with it and score yourself, but I thought it was a horrible thing to put the punters through and put your side through. And if you lost, if Jeremy Marshall King got to that try and it was allowed, then that would have all come back on you, I believe, anyway. That's maybe I'm speaking through my punter's pocket and commentator, angry commentator. But anyway, I think it was very disappointing. The time and possession, it was 46% to the Dolphins, much more for Cronulla, 54%. And completion rates, 82, quite high for Dolphins on a losing side, 78, fairly high for Cronulla as well. All runs meters, there was quite a few more from Cronulla. Post-contact meters were quite significant, and actually 100 more for Cronulla Sharks. So some stats are lining up here. Line breaks 6-4 for Cronulla. Tackle breaks 40 for Cronulla, 27 for Dolphins. If it wasn't for Dolphins' scrambling defence, that could have been a lot worse in that first half. Average set distance, 45 metres for the Sharks and only 43 for the Dolphins. Kick return metres, 245, a lot more there for Cronulla. So they, compared to Dolphins, only 138. Just looking at the offloads here, 13 offloads to 8. Cronulla, fairly good receipts for both of them. Total passes fairly even, probably 10 more to Cronulla. And looking down the page here, 4 dropouts, 2 to Cronulla and none for the Dolphins. Kick diffusal, only 40%. It's a bit worrying there for Cronulla, 40%, and 77% kick diffusal, quite good for the Dolphins there. Defence, 89% effective tackles for Cronulla and 87, so fairly even for the Dolphins there. Tackles made, 415, and an extra 30 tackles made there, and the 30 tackles less for Cronulla at 343. Missed tackles, this is the big alarm bell here one for the Dolphins. 40 missed tackles, 27 missed tackles for Cronulla. Intercepts, 1-0. Ineffective tackles, 15 for Cronulla and 22 for Dolphins. No need to go any further. They both used all their interchanges. Let's get on to the next match. But I just thought it was a bit of a lackluster game. The referee blew the whistle too many times. And with a 6-0 halftime score, it was just a very uneventful game. I found it quite disheartening, especially when you need, 2 or 3 try scorers. But anyway, let's get on to the next match. And that was it was hard work for the Knights up at McDonald's Stadium there. Dominic Young went over twice. They lost 32 points to 14 against the visiting Storm. And Fletcher Hunt went over in the 70th for the Knights, the 11th Dominic, and the 27th Dominic Young. Elise Katoa, the first of our bankers. It was 6 tries to 3. Elise Katoa in the 38th minute. Trent Liero was one of our late leggers there. Down at around 4th or 5th, we had him. He was good value. 43rd minute. Kane Bradley went over twice, 47th and 51st, replacing a few players on the wing there. And Elise Katoa went over again. Another outstanding match for Elise Katoa. I don't know how he's scoring in the Dally M, but he's got to be right up there. He'll definitely be one of the top forwards this year. Jackson Hastings, he only got 1 from 3, so that was hard for the Knights. But without Kalen Ponga and Fletcher Sharp, they're looking towards next year now. There is rumours of looking for a new coach as well from O'Brien, but I honestly think it's because of their injuries why they're really battling. And then you got players like Bradman Best who was just trying too hard, but he wasn't being given the right balls on the burst. And players like Ponga and Fletcher Sharp around the middle there were always offloading it to him and Dylan Lucas. So without that ability to attack and to have your best players running hardcore on the ball, it was a tough task for them. Let's have a look at the stats and we'll see how tough it was for them. Winning 13 plus there, the Melbourne Storm. And they had a lot to play for, Newcastle, and they tried valiantly. Look at half-time, it was only, in fact, they actually led at half-time, that's right, it was 8 points to 6. And so they had a go, but you never thought on paper they could even do it. Just looking at the players, they're lacking a couple of forwards as well. And as I said, Dylan Lucas, he's just not getting the amount of ball he needs. And he's very, very quick too. Anyway, let's get across to the team stats here. Time in possession, 47% Newcastle, 53% Melbourne Storm. Completion rate here, 80% Storm. Surprisingly, 83% for the Knights. All run meters here, an extra 80 run meters there for the Storm. Post contact meters 603 to only 506. Storm to 506 to Newcastle. Line breaks 4 each. Tackle breaks 32 for the Knights and 34 for the Storm. Average set distance, 46 metres there, a little bit more for Newcastle. As I said, they were trying, but they just didn't have the artillery. Average set distance, 44 for the Storm there. Offloads 10 to 9, receipts fairly even. Dummy passes, Newcastle through 15 to 4 dummy passes. Didn't quite work. Once or twice it may have. For the Knights there. Kicking meters, 720, a better kicking game from the Storm there. An extra 80 metres there. Kick defusal, 57 to Storm, 44 to the Knights. Defence, here we go. This one will tell the tale. 88% effective tackle for both of them, surprisingly. Tackles made, 391 Newcastle Knights and only 322 the Storm. There's your bingo ticket there. Looking at missed tackles as well, surprisingly, Storm were a little bit disappointing. 32 missed tackles, 34 to the Knights. Intercepts 1 each. Ineffective tackles. Here's another big leader for your stats. 20 ineffective tackles, Knights, and only 14 the Storm. Penalties conceded, 5, very ill disciplined, 5 to 3 Knights. Ruck infringements, 1 to 3. Always the Storm will get nailed with that. They both used 8 interchanges each, and there was a couple of guys on report. We haven't heard what has happened since then. But anyway, so basically it was just the class personified for Storm. Once they hit the lead, you honestly didn't think Knights could hang in there. They looked rugged from all those, not just the missed tackles, but the tackles made. That's always going to gas you out. Okay, let's move on to the next match. So they're looking forward to the 2026 season, and just too many injuries and too many bad games to start the year off. They started off all right, but come the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, they're getting poleaxed by sides they shouldn't have been beaten by. And they had that lead over Gold Coast and lost the game. Gold Coast are battling for wooden spoon, for God's sake. So Knights, unfortunately, get what they deserve, but in this competition, if you have not got a super bench, a phenomenal bench that can take the spot of those players like Penrith do and Storm do, and including the Roosters, you've got no chance. You really haven't. Although it's a very close-knit competition, injuries at this time of the year are vital as we start to get the divide between the top 8, top 4 even, top 8, and then there's a big divide between the others trying not to get the wooden spoon and ones that are still battling to get into the edge of the 8. Okay, so let's go on to the next match, and it was a pretty entertaining match because there was incredible tries scored left, right and centre from the word go. And unfortunately, I did tell you that I haven't been playing St George, and both of our standouts here, bankers, went over. Basically, I think it was in the first half for the Roosters. And I'll have a look at that in a second. It was 31 to 24. It went down to the wire, this game, and I take my hat off. I watched the extended replays of that match. I hear all the matches on the radio, and then I watch the coverage, the extended highlight coverage, which pretty much shows everything from disallowed tries to the fantastic tries. Terrell Sloan went over in the 7th, Sione Finau on the 13th and the 16th. Jaden Sewer, there's one that we've been having week after week after week. And now he goes over on the 64th minute. And that's why I stayed away from this match. Unfortunately, I did have a big omen feel for it. We had a big venue to go to at South Juniors for one of our mates' 60th. And happy birthday, Peter. And we had a really good night. I think it was some sort of countdown tribute show. Not that I saw much of it because it was just great catching up with everyone outside the concert. I could still hear the music, but it was just too muddy in there for my ears. Anyway, it was Daniel Tupou went over in the 2nd, the 10th. Robert Toyer. Robert Toyer was our banker. He went over in the 30th minute. Billy Smith, the first try of the second half, the 45th minute. And there's your 2 bankers. So we would have had a nice collect there. And if you saw the title of the post that I put up recently, and the start of this the photo that I used from the NRL.com website. It was a picture of Victor Radley wearing headgear. Thank you. Thank you. I've been asking for Victor for wear that headgear for a long, long time. And he scored the try in the 77th minute to seal the match. Had a fantastic game. And you keep that headgear on, sir. You're such a good player. We don't want to have you missing to continual HIA head injuries and then missing another week, 2 weeks later. So let's go on to the stats here that are important. We'll just have a look at the top tacklers in any case. And it was Jack de Belin. He's been playing so much better over the last 6 to 8 weeks. Jack de Belin, he's really been trying hard. 42 tackles. Connor Watson, another workhorse, 46 tackles. Valentine Haynes had a big, big game. I really thought they could have won it at one stage, St George, possibly with about 10 minutes to go. And they were only a couple of points behind, and it was anyone's game, really. But I honestly thought Roosters, they just had to keep on putting that foot down. And once they got the Bradley try, that was game, set, and match. Valentine Haynes, 235 metres. There we go. Teddy Tedesco, 193, consistently gets the most run metres for the Roosters side. He's an amazing player, particularly for his age. He just gets better like a fine wine. Now we'll move across here to the important part, which is the team stats and completion rate. 76%, fairly even here. 7 to St George, 78 to the Roosters. All runs, metres, it looked like a lot more there. Oh, geez, an extra 200 run metres there for St George, surprisingly. Post-contact metres, 552 to St George, 534. They were hungry, St George. They are trying to get into the top 8 still. And Roosters doing the same thing a little bit further into the competition. Line breaks there, 5-4 to the Roosters. Tackle breaks, 35 to the Roosters. Very inventive players playing for the Roosters. And only 21 for St George. That's a really bad stat for St George and a very good one for the Roosters. Average set distance, 47 metres for the Roosters and 45 for Saints. Kick return metres, pretty good for St George here. 161 and only 104 for the Roosters. Interesting stat, that one. And let's go on to the next one. The offloads were fairly similar. Pretty high receipts there for St George, with their total passes being 266. So they were eventually throwing it around, no doubt about it, doing their best to score from everywhere all over the park. And they've got the speed to do it. They've still got Sloan in there. They've still got Little. He's exceptionally quick, deceptively quick. Hasn't scored for a while, though. Total passes 209. Not that many for the Roosters yet again. Dummy passes 30 to 21 for the Roosters. And just looking here, kicking meters, a bigger and better kicking game from the Roosters. 519 to kicking meters, only 359 to St George. They have to really look into that if they're going to make the top 8 and make a run at the semis. But they're a long way off from that at this stage. Kick defuse were 100% east and only 58 for St George. That's one thing Coach Flanagan needs to look at. 7 bombs to 4. Grubbers St George 3-1. Effective tackles, 323 for St George, 88%. 370 tackles made for the Roosters. They really had to keep St George out at the end there, who were finishing like Burnborough, 92%. Missed tackles, St George 35. That's a big alarm bell for Flanagan, and only 21 for East. Especially with an attacking side like East, you can't do it. Ineffective tackles, it was pretty much even, 11 to 10 there with Roosters. Errors from negative play, 10 from the Roosters and 9 from St George, so fairly even. penalties conceded, 7 Roosters, only 4 St George. So what can you say about St George? They keep on losing those close games. If St George had won, I think they lost maybe by 3 different field goals games earlier in the season. If they had won those games, they would have been in a much better position and not always having to play this catch-up football. But they've got problems there, and I still say, as much as I like King Togia and Flanagan, I think there's something missing in that area in the middle section there. I can't put my finger on what it is, but also the injuries. They've still got Christian Tuipulotu, who's out with that hammy. He's got giant legs. He's missing desperately from that side. But St George just keep on doing it. If you know the solution, please type it into the chat there and let us know what you think the solution is with St George, because they're going to have to win back-to-back games to actually solidify a final 8 spot, even though they're not that far off. Quite a few sides are still in the midst. Okay, the next game. Now, here's another game that, for mine, is a killer for any time try scorer. And I'm really freaked out at the moment. I certainly am freaked out at, if these games continue on, I'm not going to continue to get doubles and trebles if there's only a small amount of try scorers scoring. Maybe I've got to start on every point I want to hear is concentrating on games where, like that Eastern St George game where there was a crazy amount of tries. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it really worries me that there was no score. There was no score in the second half. When someone told me that, when we came home from the party, from the countdown show, I said, go away. What? There was no score. It was 12-8 at halftime to the Bulldogs and no score for 40 minutes. Fair dinkum. And that really, really worries me. I looked at the replay. I couldn't find any ultimate whistle blowing. The penalties, nothing looked like it led to that. But I think it came down to Canterbury's defence. Like, Cowboys were throwing everything at them, everything, and they just couldn't cross the line. So you can only say, with the amazing defence that Canterbury have had over the last 2 years, that they're really starting to screw it down and make it a very, very hard thing to do, to score against them. Maybe that was the strategy. I don't know why there was no points scored in the second half, but it would have been most disconcerting for Coach Payton, where they had chance after chance after chance. And a couple of them were our try scorers, like Scott Drinkwater. He nearly got knocked out scoring a try, and that was disallowed as well, and he did have total separation of the ball. Zach Labour was the only try scorer in the first half for the North Queensland Cowboys, and it looks like Jethro Rinakama. We did entertain him, but it was his debut on the wing there, and well done, sir. Young kid coming through the ranks, through the Rinakama ranks. Jacob Preston went over, and it was really weird when he doubled over and put the ball down when he was facing the other way. He was making sure that the referee saw that he planted the ball down. But yeah, what a strange game. Let's have a look and see if the stats give us any indication why there was no tries or points in that second half, 4 points separating them at the end. We did tip Bulldogs here. There was only 7 games, and we got 6 out of 7. Peter got the full 7 out of 7, but he didn't get the the extra bonus point because there wasn't 8 games. But anyway, well done, Peter, with that tipping, and it was your birthday as well. Team stats here. Possession, right, let's have a look. Possession, 51% to Cowboys, 49, so fairly even there for the Dogs. Time in possession, 30 to 30, or 30 to 29, Cowboys. Nothing in that. Completion rate, 79% for Canterbury and only 65 for Peyton's boys, the North Queensland Cowboys. All runs meters, 1,899 to 1,887, pretty much identical there for both sides. So we're not seeing anything exceptional here. Surprisingly here, the line breaks were 5-2 for the North Queensland Cowboys. Tackle breaks, 57 tackle breaks to Cowboys and only 30 to the Dogs. That's an interesting stat, isn't it? Truly is. Kick return meters, 159 Cowboys, 141. If you were looking at this and you didn't know the score, you'd honestly be thinking, Cowboys are going to win this. Unbelievable. Passing, offloads, 10-9. Nothing's really jumping out, but that strange statistic a minute ago. Total passes, 258 Bulldogs, 263 the Cowboys. Dummy passes, 26 dummy passes from Cowboys and only 7 from Canterbury. 26 from Cowboys. And they weren't very good dummy passes. Otherwise, they would have led to tries, surely. Kicking meters here were fairly even. Another 50 metres kicking there because Dearden did play, didn't he? Yeah. So back from the origin. Kicks were fairly similar, 23-24 to the Dogs. Effective tackles, 84% for the Dogs, 88% more for the Cowboys. Unbelievable. Missed tackles, 30 Cowboys, 57 to the Bulldogs. So obviously these stats are quite reverse to what I actually thought. Intercepts 2-0 for Canterbury. Ineffective tackles 18 to Cowboys, 20 to the Dogs. Errors 17 in negative play. There's a little bit of a twist around there. 17 to the losing side Cowboys and only 15 to the Bulldogs. Penalties conceded. Well, okay, but we've got interference again and a delay. It happens. Sometimes the recording just goes on me. Hang fire. We'll pick it up from there. We had crazy interference. Now I'm just going to have to pull that off my head and just keep going. Crazy interference there. Don't know where it came from, but we've started recording again. Okay, so this was an important stat that we're up to in the negative play. 7 penalties the Dogs gave away and 3 for the Cowboys. Very, very ill-disciplined, but they scrambled a lot better. Well, on the second viewing of that today, I still couldn't work out how the hell Dogs scrambled so much. Congratulations to them because they're back in that top 4 hunt along with Canberra, Broncos and Melbourne. So well done there. Next game, it was the Sunday games. It was Warriors and Tigers. Tigers played their heart out. Dewey had a blinder, but the elusiveness of the Warriors in front of their home crowd there certainly helped them out. It ended up being 34 points to 14. Rocco Berry unfortunately got an injury, but he scored in the 7th minute, and it was a beautifully timed pass to him. So we got I thought we were going to have a blitzkrieg, doubles, trebles, 2 or 3 doubles going, but we had a couple of mixed up combinations. Lika Halasima, we had to wait to the 79th minute to get our double, but we had him in a treble with a few other players that didn't go over for a couple of big forwards that didn't go over for the Warriors. Gerald Skilton, that's right. We had Staffatoa and we had the other wing, Charlie Staines. He was as you remember, he was our banker. Unfortunately, it went to the other wing where Gerald Skilton scored, and Dewey was the only other dual try scorer there in the 27th and the 56th minute. Harris Tavita went over twice again. Roger Tuivasa Sheik, they were all long odds on, $1.60, $1.75, including Zalesniak, and Harris Tavita was reasonable price, around about $2.50 there. Tanner Boyd did pretty well with a boot, 5 from 6, and very disappointing kicking for a change from Adam Dewey, only 1 from 3. Let's have a look here at the team stats. It was possession rate 51% to the Warriors and only 49 to the Tigers. Time of possession 28 to 26 for the Warriors. Effective completion rate here 81, pretty high to both of them. 81% Tigers, 82% Warriors. All runs meters, wow, an extra 400 meters for the Warriors. Post contact meters 562 and 422 to the West Tigers. So an extra nearly 140 more there from the Warriors. They were hungry to bounce back, and it was a big win. Line breaks 10 to the Warriors. They're such an elusive side and got so many good players that can just jib with a little sidestep, and once they get through the gap, it's all over, bar the shouting. Tackle breaks 35 to only 29 to the Tigers. Average set distance 2 more meters, 38 there to 36 for the Warriors. Kick return meters 202 to the Warriors, only 98. That's something Coach Marshall has to seriously look about if he needs to make sure that his team does not be fighting it out for the wooden spoon again. And just having a look at the passing here, offloads were fairly even, receipts fairly even. Same with the total passes. Dummy passes 15, but they were effective. 15 to 7 for the Warriors there. Kicking, it was a much better kicking game here by the looks of it from the Tigers. 597 to 476. Don't forget they've also lost Luke Metcalf as a big loss for the season. 4 dropouts, 3 to the Tigers and 2. A lot of pressure from the Warriors there. And kick defusal, 93%, pretty good under the bomb there for the Tigers, and only 70 for the Warriors. Don't forget they're also missing Barnett. I'm pretty sure he's gone for the season. Massive loss, Mitch Barnett, and also Charles Nickel-Clockstad. Big losses. So it's impressive to win without those amazing players. A negative play here, 9 apiece. Penalties conceded 5 to 4 to the Tigers. Ruck infringements. All the stats that I gave you were leading towards Warriors being at the better side, and they were. And it's a long road home for the Tigers, unfortunately. But we hope they don't. For me, I hope they don't get another wooden spoon. We'll just wet the whistle as we talk about the last 2 games and wrap it up for this evening. Bit of Yorkshire tea there. Beautiful. The next game, it was a fairly strong effort from Panthers. It was at Combank Stadium. Parramatta threw their underpants in the first half at the Panthers. They end up losing 32 points to 10. It was 6 tries to 2. And basically, if you actually had Penrith to not make the 8, a lot of people were saying they wouldn't make the 8 in those early rounds when they kept on losing. You're going to have egg on your face because they are back, and they are back really well. The thing that killed me on this game, and I did tell you in the preview, I didn't know how much time Nathan Cleary was going to get. And I said to you, hold your bets off until you find out what Cleary's doing. And of course, Cleary goes over in the 71st minute. So that killed us. Although we had Luke Garner as one of our main standouts and Thomas Jenkins as a backup, we didn't have Kitiona Cortoga, the big fella, scoring the 14th minute for Parramatta, and we switched off Zach Lomax because he was very short. He's like $1.80 or something. We just didn't put him in. We put in Josh Adokar. So luckily to get a little bit of our money back there with Thomas Jenkins and Luke Garner, who went over right on half time. I think that's the thing that destroyed Parramatta. That letting that try and right at half time killed them, I think, on a mental scale. Alamotti got 3 from 6, and they're not the greatest of kickers, Alamotti. But of course, Cleary's got still sporting a few injuries for kicking. And Zach Lomax only got 1 from 2. Having a look here at the team stats before we get to the last match of the night. Possession, 46% to the Parramatta Eels, 54 to Penrith. Time of possession, 25 minutes there, and 31. Parramatta 25, 31 Panthers. Completion rates, 87% the Panthers, and 75%, only 75. A few unforced errors there for the Parramatta Eels. All runs metres, an extra 200 metres there for the Panthers. Post-contact metres, an extra 30 metres. Line breaks. This is a worry for the young coach. 9-2 of Parramatta. 9-2. 9 line breaks to 2. No wonder Penrith end up winning. Tackle breaks, 36 each, strangely enough. And if we go to the next, the passing, dummy passes, Parramatta threw 45 dummy passes, which were obviously ineffective, and only 22 dummy passes to Panthers. Receipts were fairly even. Offloads, a lot more from Parramatta, so they were getting quite desperate with the very heavy defence. Mitch Kenny, an outstanding match again in defence. We'll have a look at that in a minute. But let's have a look at the effective tackles, 88%. That's quite high for Parramatta and 83% for Penrith. Tackles made, this is the death knell. 383 tackles made by Parramatta, only 331 needed for Penrith. Missed tackles, 36 each. Intercepts, 2-1. Typical Jenkins, I think, was involved in one of them. Ineffective tackles, 31. Surprisingly more for Panthers, over 14 ineffective tackles for Parramatta. Errors, though, this is a big death knell as well for Parramatta. 20 errors in negative play and only 9. A pretty faultless game there from the Panthers. Ruck infringements, pretty much 3-2 to the Parramatta. Penalties conceded 5 each. So nothing else to report on that match apart from they were just too classy for Parramatta in the end. But I think that try by Luke Garner on half-time destroyed them mentally, and they never really got back into the match. They tried hard, but without Mitchell Moses, I think, it's basically like It's like Newcastle without Ponga and Fletcher Sharp. It's very hard to do. Okay, last match we're talking about here is Titans defeating. They got defeated 26 points to 14, and last time they played, Broncos led. It was a high-scoring affair, and the Titans come and destroyed them in the second half. But this is a different Broncos side. This is a side that's hungry. It's got a better coach, and they're on their way to the playoffs, no doubt. They were very professional in the game that I saw. Unfortunately, it was at Brendan Piakora. He's got knocked out in scoring a try. I don't know how many times we've had bankers. Yes, we got some of our money back. It was refunded because of the HIA, and he had all gravel rash on his face where when he went to put the ball down, Piakura, he basically knocked himself out. So he didn't come back from that HIA. At halftime, it was 14-2 to the Broncos. Just looking here, there was a few shots. Broncos had one shot of a 2-point field goal. The team stats here, let's see. I bet you Mitch Kenny would be up there with his tackling as well. So let's have a look here. Surprisingly, Jordan Ricky was the top tackler there with 37. And Katoni Stagg's most run meters, 236 for the Broncos. Philip Sami had a fairly big game. He did something that cost his side badly in the game. I can't remember what it was, but I remember it was an important part of the match. 187 for Philip Sami there. The thing that killed me also when we had the anytime try score, not only getting our main banker knocked out in that first try, was that Jojo Jafita. We have had him every time we play Gold Coast. We've had Jojo Jafita every time, and if it's not Jojo Jafita and Brimson, we usually chuck in Philip Sami. But Jojo Jafita went over twice and just broke my heart because we had Reece Walsh as our standout, and of course the other guy was Piakura's try was disallowed. So just no luck this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go back to Jamin Jolliffe was the top tackler, in fact, for the Gold Coast Titans. And if we click on the team stats here we'll see what happened. 47% completion rates and possession there for the Titans. 53%, a lot more controlled there from the professional Broncos outfit. Time in possession, 29 minutes there to the Broncos, only 26 to the Titans. Completion rate, 78% Broncos and only 70% to the Titans. As we know, Desi's made his announcement that he's retiring from coaching after this year, and also going out with him is Kieran Foran, that was with him in Manly. So let's get to the all-run meters here. It was 1,827 to the Broncos. They ran rings around them, and only 1,600 to the Titans. Post-contact meters, 580 to the Broncos, only 544 from the Titans. Kids in the hallway screaming out, it is the school holidays. Line breaks 5-3 for the Broncos there. Tackle breaks 46. Tackle breaks, most disconcerting for the coach there of the Titans, Desi. 46 tackle breaks to the Broncos, only 28 from the Titans. Average set distance 43-40 for the Broncos. Much else needed here. Kicking meters were fairly similar. Offloads fairly similar, 3 more to the Gold Coast. Dummy passes, this is interesting, and they're effective. 23 dummy passes. This is killing me, this stat. 23 dummy passes from Broncos and zero from Titans. That's not good. Anyway, the kicks 21-15. Reynolds had a big day with the boot. Kicking meters 630-412 Broncos. Kick defusal only 50%. That's a worry there for Hazzy. 50%, and the boys from the Titans 83% kick defusal for the Broncos. As I said, it was a very slick, professional effort from the Broncos, and good to see that they've had the players for 2 years. Last year, they just they looked in the mirror and the mirror cracked. There was just all too much ego in that side. 85% effective tackles there for the Broncos, 86 for the Titans. Missed tackles. Here's the death knell for you Titans. 46 missed tackles to only 28 for the Broncos. Intercepts 2-0 to the Broncos. Ineffective tackles, which is really surprising. Broncos 26 and Titans 8. Negative play 14, 16 there. So 16 to the Broncos. 2 more mistakes there of negative play compared to 14 of the Titans. Penalties conceded 6-4 to Broncos. Ruck infringements fairly even. And that's all she wrote for round 19. So unlucky. We ended up a little bit down for our anytime try scorers, specifically for those 2 or 3 matches where there was minimal amount of tries scored. It's something that's really bothering me and worrying me. If it continues on, we'll need to maybe come up with a slight variation of our system, because that is not good at all. Maybe we'll have to start taking some more odds on into our doubles for the wingers, because usually we start with at least a 2-1, 5-2, or 3-1 pop to give us value, and most of them get up usually every week. But it's a matter of getting that second try scorer, and if you keep on putting odds on $1.60, $1.75 in, the doubles don't pay much whatsoever. So we are shooting for a little bit more comfort zone, but it's not happening the way these close games are being played. And for that, I don't remember the last game. It was pretty much close in the grand final. That was in that sort of same vein as that North Queensland and Canterbury game. That's not good when there's not a point scored in the second half. What do you think? Leave a comment, subscribe, comment, even if it's bad comments, suggestions. I've got a few suggestions. As I said, we need to look at that worrying sign that some of these games are not having enough try scorers, which is our bread and butter. All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next week, I need to have a look at this little iMac Pro MacBook. Keeps on having mad noise interference halfway through the show. So I've had to do it without my headphones. Luckily, I've got a loud voice. I can hear myself just by pulling it slightly off my head. All right, until next time, look out for the tips for Thursday. God bless, and have a good week ahead of you. Keep warm.